I like these two.
Nico Steyn, welcome to Life in a Garden Online. Thank you for joining us this evening. It was lovely of you to finally log on 3 minutes late.
Thank you. It's totally unprofessional. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be
Oh, you're
here.
welcome. So, you see, Jake, what's our president's name? Cyril Ramaphosa, and you have something in common.
Oh, no, I didn't want to be compared to him. I mean, he's a nice guy and all of that, but
Is he? Is he really a nice guy?
who knows? He has a nice smile. You know, it's important for anybody who's in a position like that to really just come across nice. You need an icon.
And how's your version of Jerusalem?
Oh, terrible. I have 2 left feet.
You know, I said I had 2 left feet. Do you remember that, Mariana? I told Leon Nell the other day I have 2 left feet, and he said, there's no such thing. Show me your feet.
Okay.
Leon Nell's a line dance instructor. He said, there's no such thing as 2 left feet.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I suppose I'm kind of musical, but not really in the Broadway sort of sense.
not on the dance floor.
No, not at all.
So you know Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire type thing.
No, I once did. I think when I was very young, I once did a rock and roll class. I took a rock and roll class with a friend of mine, and it didn't go so well because she was kind of on a hefty side. So when we had to do the lifts and stuff, I still have back problems now from it. So.
You're not a Donovan Tooth, are you, by any stretch of the imagination?
You're going to put me on the spot tonight, man.
Oh, I am. I certainly am.
Oh my God, I'm regretting it already.
You opened that door and stepped right through it.
Okay, I'm okay.
So you mean you're not going to be doing ballet with me and lifting me above your head and twirling all
if
around?
Only if you promise to go on camera too, and I know that you don't want to do it, so I win.
But I don't see any point in going on camera. This is about you. This hour is only about you. It's not about me. I won't talk about myself. We're going to talk about you. I mean, I do occasionally talk about myself because, you know, I am a narcissist and all, and one needs to like interject little bits about yourself and drop little bits and pieces. But no, it's about you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm honored. I see you had your hair done as well.
I did, especially for this.
I know.
I didn't even miss any parts.
Oh, it's fantastic. You do it in the shower or in the morning?
mirror after shower, yeah.
How do you get to the back?
I sort of just kind of like I've got a system now, so I do it in quadrants, sort of back left, back right, top, you know, and you know. How did we get to this subject? Oh my God. You're good.
It's amazing the things that people tell me because nobody's watching and nobody's listening.
Although we know the truth.
We do know the truth, but we need to just pause here for a second, Nico, and go
New
back to
spot
say,
in the garden.
oh, I like the grass. That is
Nice,
so pretty.
nice.
Look at the flowers.
Yeah, just this afternoon I was just looking for pictures that sort of made it feel like we're in a garden, and right in front of me is a massive monitor as well, and I can see the pictures over there as well. So it feels, you know, calm.
Did you ever see the movie Soylent Green?
I did not.
No. Well, there's a scene where I think it's Laurence Olivier goes to die. I don't know if it is Laurence Olivier. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, the old man goes to die.
Right?
And you can choose to die in Soylent Green. It's a wonderful system. And they treat you like a king, and you go in and you lie on this bed, and then they have this surrounding video thing, and all these pictures they play this beautiful music that you choose, and all these pictures go around of all the things that don't exist anymore, beautiful forests and animals, and it's just really fabulous. And that's what you've done. You've created this little forest thing. Yeah.
The only difference in those days, they thought that 2020 was going to be sort of that, and now we're here, and
it is kind of that. We're all walking around in masks.
Okay, the last 6 months was a bit of that. Yeah, I'm kidding.
We just don't have the freedom to die yet when we want to, but it's coming, I imagine.
No. Okay.
Okay, so Nico, can we go back to your childhood?
Okay.
Yesterday, and
it was strange.
Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and where you're from.
I am basically from the south of Johannesburg. I grew up in a place called Kibler Park, which was next to a golf course. So it was kind of like being in a garden all day, and it was fantastic. I was fascinated by the trees and the plants and just being in nature, and I loved it because in those days it wasn't very developed yet. In those days, my father used to speculate with houses. And so we sort of designed a house and sold it and lived in the next one, built the next one and so on. And it was kind of a nomadic sort of life, I suppose, which was quite interesting growing up.
Who's your father? Who's your daddy?
Who's my daddy? His name was Johannes Jacobus Steyn, Hans Steyn, yeah.
Not Douw Steyn?
No.
No relation?
Not at all, actually. The closest I've been to Douw Steyn, we once moved into a new building that he had downtown UJ, down, where the campus is.
Yeah.
That big tall glass building. And when we first moved into the building, in the basement, right moving into the lifts and going up, there was sort of 2 parking bays that were marked as Mr. D. Steyn. No one else parks here. And I thought, if I could just make that an N, I've got this waxed. But then the university had other ideas about the parking bays. So
did he need 2 parking bays? I mean, how many cars can you drive at once?
Well, he probably had like sort of a day zippy car and then a kind of a go home car. I don't know.
Or one for his stick.
I just made that up. That's
okay,
it.
you didn't hear that from me, all right?
You know people are watching this, right?
No, they're not. They're actually sleeping. I just asked them to sign on and pretend,
Okay.
Especially since his wife is one of my Facebook friends. Not that we've ever actually
you're
met.
In trouble now. Nice.
Okay, so you're from the South and you went to school where?
Afrikaans schools.
So you are a Nico.
And so on. Yeah, but I'm only a part-time Afrikaner now. I'm not ashamed to say it. I grew up in the television business, and when I got to Witsteck and we were doing theater craft and stuff, I just started going, you know what, the classes are in English. I might as well make my notes in English. And even now when I design or any thinking, obviously, that I do fully in English. So I'm not that Afrikaans anymore.
You said Witsteck. How old are you?
54.
Which campus? So you were in town or you were at the new campus?
That was when all of the stuff was just beginning to happen. So I suppose at that stage, we were in a tiny little block of flats, which was on Saratoga Avenue, which eventually became the campus. Yeah, with the art school, we shared with the art school some pretty weird people. And we also shared with
I went to that art school. Huh?
There you go. I knew you're familiar.
No, I didn't go to that art school.
I put my foot into it, and it's sort of something that I've come to live with. I just go, you know what? I'm going to say something that'll offend somebody because I'm going to say something stupid about what I think about people or something.
Are you one of those people that if it's on the lung, it's on the tongue, and there's no sort of processing first?
Yeah, I think also you get to an age where you don't edit anymore. I think maybe my one regret was when I was younger, I possibly edited a lot, self-edited a lot. Whereas when you get to this stage where you just say it, whatever, and I kind of quite pride myself in the fact that there's nothing that I wouldn't say about something or somebody that I wouldn't say to their face as well. So if I had to be in conversation and go, yeah, so-and-so is a real klutz or whatever it was, I'd have no problem telling them to their face.
I like the klutz words. Nice Yiddish word you've thrown in there. Oh, isn't that beautiful? You're doing this to distract me, aren't you? You want to take me off the topic?
I know, when you do difficult things, I'm just going to go to that picture. How am I doing on the nerve scale at this stage? I mean,
well, you're not moving, so that's fine. You haven't kind of started twisting in your chair.
I haven't fallen over yet.
Are you sitting on your hands to keep them still?
Yeah, I'm quite comfortable. It's a really strange and interesting thing to be interviewed by sort of like a mystery voice in your head.
In your ear.
Watching, and just watching cold cameras,
But there are people watching. You can see Mariana. Mariana is smiling at you. I'm smiling at you.
Yes, but then I have to look away, and then you're going to shout at me, right?
Yeah.
So I can't because my screen is over there. So if I break, then it's going to be that camera. And if I do that, you're going to say, but I'm not looking at the camera. So it's a difficult thing. I'll just keep looking at the cold camera.
Well, just know that we're here, okay? We're here and we love you and we support you in all of your decisions. So, just be brave.
Thank you.
And there was Karen. Karen came in for a bit of a cameo and then left.
Okay. Hi, Karen. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so how did you get into Mnet?
It was it was the first real job that I ever had. And I still don't think I've ever had a real job. I was applying to be, there was a position for FCC control and nobody knew what that was as an FCC producer. and I just applied, and they sort of were just paying kids quite low fees to just go and write the evening's program and make sure that all of the shows started on time. So it was a really simple job, not brain surgery, but I really liked it. And I did that as a sort of freelance job while I was a student. So a lot of the time they gave me, at that stage I was at film school in Pretoria, and they gave me the afternoon shift. I think it started, I think we were on air by 12 or something like that. There was like a short batch, if you remember.
Yeah.
I think there was a movie at 12 and a filler or something, 60 minutes. And then they shut down, and then the evening it went live again, I think at 5 or so. And then the kids programming came along. And so I was just an FCC controller or producer for about 3 or 4 months when I started making promos, and it sort of got noticed, and that's how I sort of got into the gig. So it's
became a creative director.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. I just did I did promos, and so when you had empty gaps on the schedule, I'd look at the schedule and go, geez, there's a James Bond movie tonight, or there's a Star Wars movie tonight, and there's no promo, because they only had 3 promo producers at Mnet in those days, freelancers. And so they could only make like 20 promos a month, and that's why you saw so many of the same promos all the time. And I thought, I've got to make a James Bond promo. So I made a James Bond promo myself, snuck into the edit suite, made the promo, put it on air. And after I'd done that for about 2 weeks or so, the marketing director was Chris Raatz, who in those days we had memos in your inbox. And I had a memo that said, I believe you've been making promos, put them on a VHS and come and see me. And
VHS, not VHS.
Sure. Yeah, those were VHS days, yeah. And so I went up there to his office. He had the corner office, and I thought I was fired for sure. And he looked at it and he said, so do you do these? Who made this? And I said, well, I did. He said, how do you do it? And I said, well, I just edit. I go into the edit suite and I just edit the stuff. And he said, how could you make the other producers make promos like this? And I said, well, you probably, I'd say you'd probably need a creative director or something, just to oversee it. And he said, well, do you want to be a creative director? Can you be that? And I said, I don't know anything.
And does it come with a pay rise?
Yeah. I mean, in those days, in fact, my first secretary she earned 3 times what I earned in those days, because she was 40 and I was only 19. So they were going, no, you get 4,000 Rand. That's it. But they gave me a corner office as well, which was quite nice.
Oh, with a view?
Yeah, it was quite a view.
What, of Bram Fisher?
Well, yeah, I suppose a view of the car park, but hey, it was a corner office for a while.
Well, maybe it was Oak Avenue, so at least it's like, better looking than
yeah, no, it was the front. It was that first, I think it was the first phase of the Mnet building, which was kind of to the side of, the car park, yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. A room with a view. What is ideation?
What is ideation? Ideation, I suppose, is just a fancy word for thinking, for innovation and new thinking.
So you made it up?
No. I mean, is
it a real word?
Probably about 10, 12 years ago, I suppose, in South Africa. Nowadays, everybody's talking about innovation,
Yeah.
Marketing seems to be a science where if you put innovation on your billboard, then you're really happening. But it wasn't always trendy. I mean, in the early days of innovation, when in small pockets and companies, people were beginning to figure out different ways of working and creating new thoughts, or this is before words like thought leaders and innovation and all of that sort of stuff
and pivot,
sort of, and pivot, which is the new one. And so ideation was really just a fancy word for a concept of creative thinking or problem solving, which was a big part of a background for me.
So then you went on to work with Edward de Bono, and you designed an ideas game. What ideas game?
Oh, those are 2 different stories. Which one do you want?
Both. I want both. I'm not shy to ask.
You want both? Okay.
Yeah, I want both. Okay. Notice we're changing the picture now because
picture change. Okay. I really like this view. It felt like it could be somewhere in Cape Town, but I'm not really sure. So I can even cut it full screen for you. How's that?
Oh,
is that pretty?
Except that I can't see you now. I don't need to look at an oak tree.
I know. I'm quickly just, powdering my face or something. I'm back.
Is the fluffer coming to wipe the forehead?
Yeah, yes. I'm just going, oh my God.
Okay, now don't avoid the question. Let's do Edward de Bono first, because he sounds like a killer.
Interesting. I had a really remarkable boss. I mean, Chris Rotz, who was our marketing director in Mnet those days, was incredibly forward thinking. And he started sending people, and this is before companies had a fee to go and train their staff and get upskilled and the kind of mess that you have nowadays. In those days, it was real. He really went, listen, we've got to get better at this shit. And so, could I say shit? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And so we've got to get better at this. So what do we do? And he used to always, wherever there was some new course or something interesting, he would, make sure that the people in the company knew that they could go and do this and learn. And so that's how I really got to go to some of those first seminars that Edward de Bono used to do in the country. And I got to meet a fabulous range of people. My very good friend, Nicola Tyler, who coaches and actually trains in that space. And so there's just this incredible world. And that introduced me to that space of innovation and new thinking and different ways to come up with good ideas. And I've always loved Edward's work, and he's just so fantastic. And obviously got to meet him, year after year as he came to South Africa. And eventually myself and Nicola actually went to Paris to go and shoot some footage with him. And we did a show with him. We did a series of lateral thinking and thinking for business, which kind of moved me into that space of being more aware of business and how business works and the kind of thinking that there is. Because, creative people hardly ever get to learn that stuff. And so that was quite refreshing, and it was quite amazing because more and more I started kind of learning those skills and figuring out how to budget and figuring out how to do strategy and figuring out all those other things that I think are incredible soft skills that I don't think they teach nearly enough, and certainly not at schools. How did I get there? That got serious fast.
Yeah, well, they don't teach you enough of those life skills at school to start with. Balance.
Yeah,
like
did you just go softer now?
In the olden days, balancing your checkbook. Have you lost me?
Yeah. So I think I just lost your audio. Did you go softer on this?
I don't know. Has my voice dropped again? No.
Yeah, tremendously.
I've dropped
this
again.
Is a good ear. No, it's good. I can hear you. Thank you. It's time to change the backdrop. Change the backdrop. How's this? We're flat on the lawn now.
Is that a golf lawn after the rain?
I don't know. It just felt like sort of fairy dust or something in the dew or something early morning. I don't know. It was quite magical. So yeah, so this led me to really want to figure out how could I work with Edward de Bono and how could I work with his material, because at that stage when I was beginning to work with creatives on a very high level, designing channel imaging and graphics and stuff, I thought that it is just so valuable as material, but it wasn't making contact with him. As you know, Dr. de Bono has stuff like the 6 thinking hats and stuff. So those aren't, it's not imagery, or it's hard to teach that to a younger crowd who aren't that into hats, and they think that's all old guy kind of fuddy-duddy type stuff, So I started developing a board game that could facilitate how you could get better ideas going. And I studied not only Dr. de Bono's material, but also all of the great thinkers, just to figure out how people came up, what their methodology is in thinking, And so it was the old gang of 3, Aristotle and Socrates and Plato. And then sort of as the time went by, even the kind of thinking of Moses and Buddha and so on. And then, later years, de Bono and Disney, and just all of these people had quite fantastic ways of coming up with new ideas and methodologies of thinking. And that kind of really interested me. So I studied that a little bit, and then I just used that and put it into a board game. So the ideas game was a kind of an attempt to teach people thinking or idea generation, but in a fun kind of light way.
What's your favorite way of coming up with ideas?
I like to just clear my mind, and I like to have different perspectives. So I think that it's a good idea to just sometimes get lost, just walk down the street and turn left or right when you've never done that before, or go into a building, it looks interesting, or there's a shop front that you haven't seen before, or you just spotted this, go and explore. And I think that sense of just exploring new, or just going down a new avenue, or just, taking a new turn is is interesting to change your perspective, and it allows you to shift your thinking about something. So if you only always see, it was Einstein who said, if you have the same mindset to solve a problem then you created it with, then you're going to come up with the same solutions. So unless you change that perspective violently, you're not going to come up with new solutions. And that's something that stuck with me always.
So you're not a meditation type guy then?
With my mind, not so much so. My mind is quite active and it just goes. So it's not that easy to really zone in. It's funny enough because I did that Clifton strength test, and my number one talent that comes up is actually focus. So I'm able to focus on something, like laser focus, and get it done and go with it. But I find that it's always interesting to also have something else on the side and something on this side, so that you almost compare stuff. Because if you work on 2 or 3 things at the same time in sort of little pockets, almost as if you chunk a little bit of energy here and then you move it to the next one, there's always a good sense of inspiration and a different perspective that comes from the other thing you're exploring, and they tend to inspire one another as ideas. That's sort of my process.
What's the Clifton strength test? I've never heard
of
it.
The Clifton, really, very interesting.
I'm going to Google quickly.
Google it. It's fantastic. Clifton was I think it's a psychologist.
And I thought it was a beach in Cape Town, yeah.
Okay. And this is about 30 years American, and he made a decision to look at psychology to see if we could fix or look at what's right with people instead of seeing what's wrong with them. And in doing this test, he came up with something like 34 finite talents that people have. So in all of the world, there's only 34 talents in the Clifton Strength package. And all of us have a different pitch or hierarchy of talents, and particularly 10 talents. But your 5 top talents are what guide your personality and your character and how you show up in the world. And so it's very interesting to know what those are, because if you understand, for example, like me, that focus and strategy and what are my top ones are focus and strategy and achievement are at the top of it, then you understand what always drives you to see things through and stuff. And my people skills as a talent are actually quite a bit lower. So I have to work harder at that in order to have empathy, in order to connect with people. My empathy is taught, but I have to work hard at it, you know. I mean, I think I'm fairly authentic, but
fake it till you make it, Nico. Fake it till you make it.
I work in that space. I mean, I'm fascinated because on camera, and when you see people perform and act, and obviously nowadays when people are online, it's crazy that authenticity is something that is so very important to me to try and understand. And I've worked really hard to kind of help people to reach that. And there are things that you can do to be more authentic or to come across more authentic. It doesn't mean that you fake it, but it is interesting that it's quite low on my list of talents. It's quite terrifying, actually, now that I think about it. I'm going to talk to a therapist about this.
Yeah, you know, like if so-and-so is drowning and so-and-so is drowning, which one would you do? You know, that burger was getting cold, yes.
Yeah. No, it's not tests like that. No, it's quite interesting. Actually, when you do the Clifton Strength, it's a set of like 140 questions that you do in sort of 20 minutes. And then they're always pitting 1 or 2 ideas against one another. And in the end, you have to make a decision. And it always pits 1 or 2 of these talent groups, and so it eliminates until eventually they get down to figure out what your top 5 talents are. It's a very interesting
talent test. DNA is. I love that. Yeah. I love stuff like that. Yeah. I'm going to do that.
I'll give you an example. For example, I mean, I'm going to talk about a very good friend of mine that I've been working with for some 30 years, and I know him very well, and we work really well together. And there's something interesting because his number 1 talent is that of a deliberator, right? So a deliberator is also
a thinker.
And it's a different way of thinking because it's asking questions through your thinking. So it's also deliberator, for example, is a very strong, it's a very strong talent to employ for strategy. So even though for me, strategy comes as number 2, it's obvious for me what it is as a strategy because I can see things from above. I see things, you know, like that little kid in the movie. But if you don't have that as a skill and you have deliberative, for example, you could come up with really great strategic thinking by asking the right questions and probing from different angles. And that gives you, that's his way of working. But now for me, as somebody who easily sees a strategy, I used to go to him and go, I've got this idea and we should do this and this and this in the company. And because he starts asking questions that almost challenge my strategy while he's trying to understand it, I perceived it as him being pissy and trying to look to cut,
he's nitpicking. Yeah.
Yeah, but it isn't. It's his method of working. So by just understanding that dynamic, you could change it quite radically by saying, all right, I'm going to ask you what you think about it, but I don't want you to ask me the questions now. Go and think about it and tell me tomorrow what you think of my strategy. And in that process, he'll come up with a really great strategy that is good and challenges me, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to, blow holes in my idea. And that by understanding that about how you work, it just means that you can work better in teams because you start understanding how other people show up and how their talents serve them. Jeez, that was deep too. I'm going to drink some water.
I like that. I'm definitely going to do that. I love doing things like that. So yeah, I'll go and see what mine are. It's probably making a noise and making a mess. And
my number 4, now I know what the other one is, also future. In fact, I'm also very future looking, which is quite interesting. If I talk about an idea to people, because I'm future orientated, I'd immediately go, it's almost like the plan is in motion already and I'm there because I can see it. So sometimes if we discussed something and I sort of turn around and go, why isn't everybody here now? I'm in the future. Where the hell are you? It's because I immediately can crystallize ideas and then I can start moving towards them, which is kind of interesting.
So let's move towards this idea here. How long were you at Mnet for?
Gosh, probably a good 5-6 years. And as a process, what we did in those days was we were just seeing the end of the apartheid era. And at that stage, the producers, as a group of people who were all freelanced, saw it as an opportunity, and we banded together and we formed a company that moved away from Mnet, and they were quite happy about it because it got a lot of because they needed to be more of a black company. It was good for them to move sort of these kids out and make them be a company on their own, and it was a great opportunity for us to become our own company. So that was kind of how I moved out of corporate world into sort of entrepreneurial space, and sort of just stayed there for the rest of my life.
So in the initial part of the rest of your life, what were you actually doing in this entrepreneurial, big word there, space?
I think I was always entrepreneurial and scheming about businesses and seeing something as a business opportunity without realizing, I mean, this is again, before the word got to be sort of fancy. I already had 3 or 4 companies that I was either instrumental in starting with somebody else or starting on my own and moving with it, So I was always, and I was always excited about, I've always been excited about new things because of this future thing. I always just liked that kind of space. So I was, for example, my second company, which I started on my own, was an image company or a special effects company. But in those days, it was just so ahead of the time that I was beginning to learn from contacting people in LA. And this is something I can tell you that's amazing in that entrepreneurial space, that we tend to sometimes feel that it's only our world and only the people that we know that we can talk to. And there's something so amazing about connecting with people who are thought leaders and people who think ahead, and connecting with those and asking them questions and challenging them, because they share very willingly and very openly. So even in those days, I mean, I'm talking about sort of 90s now, late 90s now, it was quite remarkable to be able to contact people in LA and go, I love what you do. How do you do this and how does it work? And they would teach you, they would tell you, and they were very open about it, And so in those days, I really saw an opportunity for digital and special effects. It was just the early stages of digital effects. And I tried to get it into South Africa, and I tried to get agency folk and creative folk here to think that way. But it was a little early because, an agency couldn't understand, for example, why you wanted to shoot a whole thing on green screen to look like Switzerland when the budget actually allowed to go to Switzerland and we all could take a holiday. So, it was hard to sell it. And because I was selling it wrong in those days, I suppose I didn't shoot many Switzerland commercials.
Yes, I could see why.
Yeah, so I just didn't sell it right, but I learned in the meantime. So. still haven't been to Switzerland.
I believe I believe they have great chocolate.
I like that, but I've got it at my spa as well these days.
Listen, any advert that I advocated never ever had Switzerland budget.
Really, I got close to it once or twice, but I think that I had a quick sort of flirtation, if you like, with the agency world, but I didn't enjoy it so much because I think that I've always, as a producer or as a director, been very serious about the product. And even to this day, I mean, just over the last 2 weeks, I've had a huge upset with a client because I'm fighting for their product and they misunderstand it sometimes as ego. And I think that particularly in the agency world, of course, you're really high-end egos that you deal with. And sometimes things and decisions are more political based than product based. And that was something that did not sit well with me, because I didn't always feel that people made decisions for the sake of making the right decisions. I thought that people who had the best argument and the biggest ego would win. And then we didn't always do the right thing for a product.
Sounds like Tresemme that you're talking about right now.
Yeah, and it wasn't very popular in the agency world. I often told them, what I thought, and then you don't get hired again.
I have that exact problem. I am particularly on set when they ask where the cappuccinos are and can we send a runner to get a cappuccino from the place across the road. Hello, you're here to work, not sit and drink cappuccino. So I was never very popular. So we obviously didn't get invited back to cater. Nothing wrong with the food, just my attitude sucks.
Yeah. So I love the film industry too. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I'm used to it. Anybody would think we were here to talk about you,
Ouch, that hurt. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to change the scene now. I don't have any more plants.
Oh, so now we're looking at a typewriter.
Yeah.
Do we all reckon we're all old enough to recognize that as a typewriter?
Are we going to play a game? What is this? It's really close up. What are you seeing?
Did you see the article that they're taking analog clocks out of schools because kids can't read them?
That's just tragic.
I know. Rather teach the kids to read a clock than take them out. I mean, spot the error.
Startling. Yeah. Yeah. No,
because you said to me 7.2, was it 7.5 businesses? And two, hang on, how did you phrase it? I've got seven and 2.5
companies. Yeah.
Yes. What is a half a company?
To me, a half a company is a company that you planned in quite detail, but maybe you haven't started it yet. And so, I think what's interesting again about entrepreneurial world, a lot of people don't want to take risks. So if they had a company that failed, they don't want to talk about it, because failure as a word or a concept is something that people struggle with that word. And I think that sometimes there's a lot of learning and failure, but people don't want to admit that they've been there, or they don't want it publicized that they went through a failure. And I think failure makes us, in fact, I've spoken to investors who are very keen to work with people who failed, because they go, you've learned really expensive lessons and you won't make that mistake again. And that's the truth. Unless, of course, you're Homer Simpson in that scene where he keeps burning his finger on the plate.
I never watched that. I was a Yogi Bear kind of girl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Simpsons I'm a big fan.
But I mean, people like Donald Trump and Branson, they've both failed. I mean, Branson's just filed for bankruptcy for Virgin Air.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that in the stigma that we have in general populace with failure is not necessarily connected with learning, which is a great shame to me, because I think that those lessons are so important. And part of why I wanted to write about it was also because I feel that there are very important lessons that I want to remind myself of, to go as I move into a new venture. I don't want to go and make the same mistakes all over again, because I know I'm going to make new ones. So I want to remind myself and know what my checklist is, because this is knowledge. This is stuff that you know. Yeah.
I wanted to write about it, you said.
Yes, I don't think that the climate is maybe not right about now. This is about 3 years ago or so that I really started thinking about this idea to write a book. And because I've been threatening for a while to do it, I wanted to explore different ways of writing as well. This is a transition as we're going to start talking about writing, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay, right. Thank you.
We're actually going to talk about writing a book in 7 days.
That's
For the man who hasn't started writing his book yet.
I know, I should be there, right?
Right.
I just think, again, it's one of those things that I don't think the timing for that particular book is right at this stage, because I think the lessons that I've learned were conditions of companies functioning under normal situations, and I don't think anything is normal about what we're finding ourselves in at the moment, and I don't think it's going to be normal for a very long time. So I didn't feel that the time was right now for that particular book. So I'm busy working on something else.
So we've shelved it for 14 days, have we?
Yeah, I'm gonna hold back on that one because it's fun. It's quirky. I mean, I talk about lawsuits. I talk about people who said horrible things to me. I talk about horrible things I said to people about people. I mean, I think there's dirt in it, because I'm 50. Come on, there's a lot of stuff, But I think I'm going to keep it for a while because it's just sort of simmering in the background.
Do you know in the last half an hour your age has dropped 4 years? Oh, how old will you be by 8 p.m.?
I'm hoping to be 30. And then we can do another talk tomorrow night, please.
When you'll be in your teens.
I just want to be 24 again. That was a good year for me.
24. I don't even remember 24, but I think I would rather be in my 30s personally. But anyway, with the knowledge of 50 and be in your 30s, I think that's fantastic.
I tend to think about a time when I had hair and a six-pack, times when I had cheekbones, and then, when I started, cutting my hair.
Cheekbones? So you know those bones that you have, like women have on their, I don't mean chesticles. I mean those, like that clavicle bone that women have, that little hollow. Yeah. I haven't seen mine in 30 years.
Oh, okay. Well, you see. And then the time with the six-pack, that was fantastic. Because, it wasn't gym or anything. It was just how it was. Those were good genes.
Oh, the good old days. Oh, they're good genes on Levi's, right?
Yeah. Now it is, yeah.
So what is it you actually do, Nico, now?
What do I do now? So it's hard to describe. It's funny that I'm busy working on a new website. And as I'm busy planning for this website, I find that part the hardest for myself to describe what's very specific. People, it's like if you have more than one thing, if it's two, which is it? And if it's three things, people just get confused. So at the moment, what I do is I'm in a pop-up studio. We've created a little pop-up studio with my partner, Mark Sham from Suits and Sneakers. So
I didn't realize that Mark Sham was your partner.
Yes, we partnered in this gig of this.
You didn't say that when I was talking to you about Mark Sham.
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So there it is.
Okay.
So we literally just I think in the first or second week of lockdown started talking about this and going, this is an ideal situation because the world is changing so much that we don't know when people are going to have an event again. And even now, as we speak, it's difficult to put 50 people in a room together. And so we started thinking about how this digital and virtual and real webinars and meetings and events could work. And that's kind of what we've been setting up. So in the background, what we do a lot is figuring out how to help people to change their communication, because what you did on a stage when you spoke to people is very different to what you do now, and how people behave online and how people tune out and how you have to structure stuff in order to keep people there. And so that's kind of what I do generally from day to day, is coach people in that space to help people to get their key messaging right and help them to use cameras well and help them to get their content together in a way that it works in short form, because that's kind of where I think a lot of communication is going to go.
So guys, do you think I should go to Nico for some lessons?
You're doing fabulously. I didn't see you on camera. I can't wait to see you on camera. I mean, I love how you interviewed. I watched one or two of your interviews and I loved it. And I think that it's so fantastic that I feel that you should have your own talk show, but you should appear in it.
Okay. Yeah. But the camera, do you have like a slimline camera that takes off 30 kilos as opposed to put on 10 kilos?
Let me tell you people, if you're doing webinars and stuff and you even have a Zoom meeting or something, a backlight does wonders. A good backlight can lose a few kilograms. I mean, really can.
There we go. I've got a good backlight. I even have a halo now.
Can I watch it? Can I watch it? Can I see it? Am I allowed to go away from the long shot? Okay.
Oh, Karen, I love you. She said you are great, Mandi. I think that's, Karen, you don't get a vote because you're such a good friend. You're actually biased.
I love Karen. Karen's just one of the most supportive people.
Have you ever tried working for her though? Have you ever been on a production where she's the line producer?
We've not worked. We worked once. That was when I had cheekbones, hair, and a six-pack. We once did a show up in Africa. I think we were in Ghana for 2 weeks. And that's the only time that we really worked together on a project. I was a young director for a project that she was coordinating and producing. It was fantastic.
Yeah, she said Ghana. She is scary to work for. She extracts the marrow out of your bones. Really. She's like, absolutely. She puts her client's budget high priority and will save them millions on their production. She's quite amazing.
As it should be. That's great.
No, because the caterer goes hungry.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, the one thing I can say about Karen that is just the most efficient. I remember that we traveled. It was a long flight, and there was lots of gates and things that we went through when we got to Ghana, and there was officials and papers and forms to be filled in and stuff. And we were whisked off to the hotel where we were staying, and we all. On the bus, she was telling people what you can drink, what you can't drink, what you can eat, what you shouldn't eat.
Sounds like Karen.
Very efficient. And we got to the hotel and she said, go and unpack your stuff because you've got an hour and then we're going to freshen up and everyone's going to come for dinner. And as I started unpacking stuff, Karen was at the door and she said, right now I need your ID because I'm needing to start working on getting us out of here. And I thought, this sounds like a horror movie. I mean, why does she want to get us out here now already? We're here for 2 weeks, but that's just how she is. And I think 2 days later, all of our visas and everything was sorted to get us out again because that's just how she works. You know, she's sort of ahead of the clock. Which
she just told us both to shut up because we're embarrassing her.
Okay. Sorry, Karen. Sending you lots of love.
Yeah, because we actually, you know what, we had Karen on a couple of weeks ago. She helped us, she showed us how to make bread. It was absolutely fabulous. You know that she's making bread at the moment.
I tasted some of that bread. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. And somebody, I actually meant to share with her, and I think I've deleted them now. Somebody sent me photos of the whole process because they went and made their own Karen bread. Anyway, so it was absolutely wonderful.
Okay, Nico, that's going to be something that's in the shops now. Karen bread.
Karen bread. Risen. Karen has risen from the ashes. Nico, before I just ummed. Oh my God, I ummed. I picked on one of my speakers the other day because they kept umming. Isn't it terrible when you notice how people
Everybody's got a stop word of some kind or panic at some point, you know.
Not every second word. That's
rough. Listen, I think nerves are a natural thing for people who aren't on camera all the time or aren't used to working in that space. And particularly, I mean, I've worked, again, this week and last week, worked with clients that I feel that I so want to help people not to feel that sheer terror, real terror. I mean, I had a client the other day and I had her microphone was open while she was in an interview. Oops. And while the question was being asked, I literally could hear her heartbeat in her breathing. She was so nervous.
Shame, man, that's terrible.
And I just stopped it and I went and in spite of COVID and everything, I gave her a big hug and I said, you're doing so great and you're so real and you're so beautiful. Just go with it. And calmed her down a little bit. And then she really went for it and she had a fantastic interview. But it's hard for people. I think there's something, I don't know why, maybe television people and people in the industry sometimes scare non-TV folk into thinking that there's some kind of magic or something kind of weird about it. And then they have this fear of God of a camera. And I think that once you can get through that and you can just live past that, you actually can have a lot of fun on camera. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun tonight. Thank you. And I was petrified in the beginning. True story.
That's why I actually like this format because it's very informal. And as I said to you, the conversation is organic. So whilst I say to you, well, we're going to talk about this and this and this and this, we can veer off that completely and talk about something else. Yeah. So when I'm looking for people to talk to, I essentially say to them, it's a cup of coffee with, two old friends talking about one of them. That's the format. And I like the organicness of it. And we're just going to go wherever the flow takes us. And right now I'm putting the flow back on you. Okay. While you were saying you were having so much fun. So now let's redirect this and have less fun. Okay.
Serious. Okay.
Yes. Serious. What's next?
What's next? Well, at the moment, I mean, I'm really enjoying this space, and I wasn't looking for the next new thing right now, because I think I found in the last 6 months, pretty much like everybody here, that we just cocooned and we just figured out survival mode, and we didn't think so much about the future. And I don't know if anybody else feels that. I just felt as much as I'm future looking and I'm looking for new opportunities and stuff, I found the last 6 months quite strange in just a bizarre way that I didn't feel like I was moving forward. I didn't feel like I was moving backward, but it just felt a little bit static. And
well, it was static. The world went. Press the pause button.
It's not usual. It's not usual for me because I'm always planning something new and something next. So it's interesting that you're going, what's next? I have just over the last week or two, Mark and I started talking about where are we going to go with this now, because there's so much sameness of what's going on. People doing webinars, trying to upsell you, a lot of free stuff going. There's a lot of that just sits in that space. And it doesn't feel like there's any new. There's no new thinking. There's no new attitude. And that has been worrying me. And so I'm in that process of putting together my own thoughts about how I'd like to move forward in coaching with people and working with people, because I really enjoy this space. I had the tremendous privilege of during this time working with even politicians and high-level CEOs, people who had to get a message out to a workforce that isn't in the room with them. And many of them had never done this, never stared down the barrel of a camera before, and it's frightening. And I loved what I was able to do to calm them down in the moment, or just put their mind at ease in that moment. And I think that where I used to think that it's only speakers that I want to help and only people who are public figures that I want to help, I realize now that there's just about everybody who needs to be in front of a camera in these days need to figure out their own way of being authentic, of making a connection, of pulling an audience along, telling a story that'll engage. And that means that pretty much anything could be my business right now. I could help anybody. And that excites me. And I want to do it digitally. I want to do it online. So people are going to be careful for a long time about the masks and distancing and all, spritzing everything, which is annoying. But it's going to stay with us for a long time. And I think that now this is probably going to be that communication that everybody needs to up their game in order to make a connection. And so
that's why I love what I do, because when you see my program, I say talking to ordinary human beings, and those are the people that have stories to tell that nobody gives a platform to.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic.
Everybody's got stories.
Everybody's got stories.
Everybody's got stories, and I think that's what freaks me out the most when I talk to. This is me spritzing now,
Yeah, I've noticed.
And what's interesting is
I'm feeling dirty. Yes.
Somebody everywhere now. Oh, I love the smell of the stuff. I think I'm addicted to it now. So I was working with a CEO who said, but I can't connect with a camera on. I don't know what. And while the interview was going, there was a moment when the interviewer asked him something about his haircut and COVID and so on, and they cracked a joke. And there was this magical moment where he became real.
Yeah.
He was real. He was in the moment. And after that, it lightened up a little. And I stopped him at that stage, and we went back, and I said, what you did there was the magic. Now you've got to pull that in earlier. And even if you have to fabricate that little moment for yourself so that you can feel that feeling, you can make that connection with the audience, and then you can take them along for the rest of the journey. And the moment that he understood it, he was just so amazed at even how simple it was to do something like that, just to smile, just to remember to crack a joke, just to remember that there are people watching this, and we are grateful for that, and we are thankful that they are there, and we have to respect their time. And so we have to share something, or we have to keep that connection and have respect for it, to pay forward. And I think the moment that people realize that, there's kind of a different thing that opens up, and then they're not so panicky and they're not so scared. I'm just talking my head off now.
No, that's okay. We don't mind. We're still listening. Nobody has bailed yet. Do you know that? Do you remember we were talking about the fact that nobody, 20 minutes in and they're like, oh God, this is boring, and they're gone.
Yeah.
Mariana's still awake, and it's nearly her bedtime.
Thank you so very, very much for watching. I really do appreciate it, because I'm thrilled to death that people would want to hear some stories that I have to tell. So thank you. I don't often get to do this, so we can do it should we move it to 2 hours now? Then I can start asking you some questions.
Go on, ask me a question.
Okay, Mandi, I want to know, when are you going to do this in the garden again? Was it really in the garden when you first started interviewing people?
Yes, really? It was in the garden.
Please tell me when you can do it again. I'll bring a mask even and I'll spritz. I would love to come and experience it. Oh, spritz lots.
I bought the house that I have because of the garden, and I really felt that it was a fabulous place to host events. So we've had weddings and different people in the garden and all sorts of different. I've had Alex Elisiv with his book in here. I've had all sorts of different people. We've done all sorts of talks, whether it be animals or health or archaeology or whatever. We've had all different kinds of talks. We do an annual murder event, in fact, which is fantastic. And we're actually having it online on Saturday instead. So Saturday evening, we're going online. So
that sounds interesting. So what, everyone's murder mystery and everyone's doing it from home? That'll be hard to kill somebody.
How do you do that? 2 authors.
Okay.
Ray White is my MC. He's been my MC since the beginning. So he comes up with these murder scenarios, and we've got a writing duo of Michael Stanley, which is Michael Sears and Stanley Trollope, and they will have to try and commit a murder and get away with it. And the public that's watching will decide whether they got away with murder or not. So, you know, the old Roman way, thumbs down, thumbs up, you got away with it, you didn't get away. You look like you need to go to the bathroom. Are you okay?
No, I'm listening to what you're saying. Am I moving around too much?
No, you suddenly got that like, oh God, I need to fart look.
No, I'm listening to what you're saying. Because it sounds really, really cool. I
used to do that in the garden. So we'll get back there eventually. At some point, if things lighten up, we'll open up. I'm thinking of hosting a dinner for 8 people, all sanitized. So we'll see. But
yeah, people travel with their own spritz now. It's easy.
Yeah, well, I have plenty. I've got 90% sanitizer on hand.
Good.
Advice for somebody starting out, Nico.
Starting out with what?
Anything. Starting out with a business, starting out in life, wanting to make a difference. Let's put it that way. Advice for somebody wanting to make a difference.
Well, I think if you're starting a business, it is a good idea to make the business have the intention to improve people's lives. Because again, I think that if you work with that kind of intention, there's a possibility that or a higher likelihood that there are clients out there. Because if you can take obviously some kind of pain point out for people, or something that you make better or easier or faster or smarter or something, there's a likelihood that people are going to buy it. And so I think it's a good intention to want to change the world. And I feel that if we could have more people starting out by just going, let's figure out a way to respect one another more, to help one another more, to really change the world. It's not as naive as it sounds, but it has to start with individuals who have the commitment to that to get going. And so I think if you have an idea like that you want to start with, then you're on a good track to become an entrepreneur or to work on a business of some kind, and do it in baby steps, but test. Don't just talk about it, do it. And I think that's where you start. Anything that you want to get going, you just have to start and move. Movement, hopefully forward, is usually the best thing, I think.
So forward.
Is that good advice?
That was good advice.
Movement, preferably forward, I would say.
The thing was that I caught there was the Standard Bank, there was Simply Better Faster, and it was just do it. So you're very brand oriented. We had Standard Bank and we had Nike.
Oh, did I put, okay. But
are you getting paid?
But not in a bumper sticker. I mean, not that I believe in stuff in a bumper sticker sort of way, you know. It's something that I think that if it's something that you could put in a simple phrase because it has meaning to you and you can make that work, it's nice to put it up somewhere and just put it, you know. I have my board on the side is full of stickies. I go with Post-it pads. I do everything that I do on a Post-it pad. I always run around with a pen and a thing, because Post-it pad you can put anywhere and it's a reminder, and it's how I form a lot of ideas. I just shape things by just putting it down, and then it sits there, and later when I see it. And one that I use is quite often I have some kind of goal or some kind of idea, concept somewhere on a Post-it pad. And the one that's at my desk at the moment is from actually one of Mark's webinars that he did the other day, and it was a a famous sportsman. Now, I'm not going to try and go there because I don't know any sports people, so I couldn't tell you who it was. But it was in ice hockey or something, and he said the strategy is to skate to where the puck will be. Your strategy can't, if you're moving to where the puck is now, you're going to be too late. It won't be there anymore when you get there. And so it's kind of an interesting strategy just to go skate to where the puck will be. And that means you almost have to blindly go somewhere because you believe that things are going to go there. And that to me is a nice drive as well.
That's a leap of faith.
My latest. Yeah, in a way. Well, you make it, you build it and they'll come, I think.
And that was God speaking.
No, I've done it sometimes, and you build and you go, no, well, where the hell are they? Why are they taking so long?
That's what the guy said if he went in the vibrator factory. Build them and they will come, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nico, what do you read?
What do I read?
What? Yeah.
Unfortunately, mostly just Calvin and Hobbes. No, truthfully, I read a lot. I love Calvin because I think Calvin is just so amazing in terms of how he sees the world. I remember the very, very first Calvin and Hobbes that I read was the two of them going through the forest, over trees, on a rock, jump in the water, get full of mud. And he said, eventually he says to Hobbes, the only surefire proof that there's no intelligent life out there is that they haven't tried to contact us yet. And he's smart sometimes with stuff, So for me,
isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So Calvin and Hobbes, but that's just because I love that sense of humor. And then mostly I read business books, and I tend to go through some of the golden oldies because old business ideas and old marketing ideas were just so sound that I thought in this time where there's a lot of fluff and there's a lot of people just repeating and regurgitating, I like going back to what the masters said. And at the moment, there's two things I'm reading at the moment, and they're both really old. The one is T.Harv Eckart's book, which is Secrets of a Millionaire's Mind, which I felt that I needed to read again because it's about attitudes and about your vibrational energy towards money and towards building what you're working on. And he's very literal because it is about becoming a millionaire, but it's also just about attracting money and working with business and figuring out where you stand with that. So I'm doing that again at the moment. And whenever I have time, I have a copy of 20 Immutable Laws of Marketing in my bag as well, because I just love Al Ries and Jack Trout. And even though they said this back in the 80s, they came up with 22 absolute ideas around what marketing is and how it works. And I think even in this day and time, it's just as accurate and as amazing and quirky as it was when they wrote it.
So it hasn't dated. Well, that's fantastic.
Well, it's because it's core. To me, it's core material. I mean, it's, if you go back to that original stuff, and I think a lot of the time when people write and when people figure out new stuff, they think that you can take an old idea and just put some jargon on top of it and then it'll be new and modern. Whereas some of it, what the masters said, what those guys said back then is true, and you can't change the truth, I mean, in science and so on, more knowledge comes along and it changes what we think or believe to be the truth. But I think in those essence, absolute clear moments that those people had, that was the essence of it.
Have you watched Mad Men?
Yes, yeah. I lost it later. It got a little bit boring, but it's certainly a great show. I just wish it went somewhere faster.
Yeah, he went very zen.
Don't get me started about series. Should we talk about series? Have we got time?
What's your favorite series?
Right now, I'm busy watching Ratchet. In fact, I'm going to watch the last episode tonight. I love that show. Oh, I've binged all of them this weekend. I've got one episode left tonight. I'm going to watch it. I've got
this terrible habit. When I start watching something, I go and Google it, and it got slated. Okay. It really got slated.
I wonder why. What? Because of?
Because of the fact that it's supposedly the prequel to Nick.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. And, so what?
Nurse Ratched is just it's apparently the colors. There's a huge color palette in the series, and it's just a very. Have a look. If you go and see it, I love the
show because it's really beautifully executed, and it's good American production, which they haven't had for a long time, because a lot of the stories are just so wafer thin and so shitty on Netflix. Whereas the stuff that's killing it at the moment is the Spanish shows.
I love foreign stuff.
I love them. And there's a German show, Dark, which
I loved Dark. Really it's brilliant.
I love the Dark. And so I'm busy watching that a second time round. And of course, the House of Paper, what is the Money Heist, is just fantastic.
You know, I stopped after the second series. I stopped watching Money Heist. I thought I can't do the third series.
Yeah.
But you must watch Signs.
I love it because it's action. I will. Which one?
Signs is Polish. Signs.
Oh, okay.
Which I thoroughly enjoyed. I finished it last night.
Yes. It's on the list, so I watch it sort of once a week or twice a week. I was actually watching an episode last night. It's just a little bit more. It's too slow, and it's hard to access the characters. Whereas something like Dark, which has many characters and is super complex, has an easy way to access all the characters. So I really enjoy that, and it's just
which Icelandic show, Karen? There are a lot of Icelandic shows. That was one of the things about Ratchet. There's too many characters. Apparently, the cast is too big, and that's what they were saying.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's sour grapes. I think it's a good show. I mean, I'm watching it, and if I could binge it, then it means that it's really, you know, for me to binge a show is it's got to be quite. It's got to be well written for me, you know, to hold me, because otherwise I'll tune out after 2 episodes.
Do you get the sense that it's very American Horror Story, sort of the same kind of?
I never watched American Horror Story because it's so boring. So I believe it's the same filmmakers, but it's on steroids, because I think the problem with horror as a genre is that it doesn't have a lot of places to go. You know, it's always going to be a dark alley, or somebody's going to be in the dark room, or the knife is sitting on a close up and you're just waiting for it. You know, it's like horror is kind of a very narrow genre. It doesn't offer a lot. And that's why I think it was such a terrible show, even though it had a fantastic actress who came into it. It was boring. It's so predictable. Come on, they're going to slice him up now. You know, it's like not my kind of stuff.
Very gruesome horror.
And overly so. I think, you know, I think that also horror directors, it's such an easy way to get a scare, where, you know, isn't true Hitchcock type thinking that goes into stuff anymore, and that's why I don't like those kind of shows. But I think certainly Ratchet it's eerie and it's uncomfortable, and it paces out really well. I love it. Really great show.
Well, on that high note, so now you know that we both watch a lot of Netflix.
Love it. Yeah, it's storytelling at its best. I love it.
Nico, I have to tell you, it's been absolutely delightful chatting to you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
I loved it. Thank you very much for having me. It was really, really fun. And thanks for everyone for watching. It was, I'm thrilled that people got to watch. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And it's just, I love having a conversation that can just go anywhere. And I'm going to have to behave myself because I'm talking to Fred Kumalo on Thursday. And
okay, lovely.
Yeah, and Bra Fred's got some serious ideas. So I don't know if we can be as flexible as I want to be. Like I said to him the other day, he said, "What are we talking about?" I said, "Well, we can talk about dead racehorses." And he said, "What do you mean?"
Okay, go on. Okay.
It's like, Fred, you better go and check out read the news, dude. Yeah. Everybody, that's what I said. I said, we're talking to Fred on Thursday. I'm going to ask him if we can move it to 10 a.m. instead of 7 p.m. because, hey, it's a holiday. Who knew that? And join us on Saturday for the murder event. Nico, if you've got nothing better to do, join us.
I'm going to check it out for sure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'd love to.
Everybody, have a fantastic evening. Thank you so much. And I will see you on Thursday. Love you all. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.